Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Zeus, and I'll put myself in the middle here for a second. I'm welcoming you back kind of to the third in a series of films. The first having to do with the hybrid nature of this virus and how we need a comprehensive health approach to this. I've talked about that. How do you combat a hybrid virus? The second had to do with can we be reinfected with this virus? And the conclusion that I had was yes, we can, because these viruses do mutate. And especially if we have only a B cell or more immediate response to this virus, and we don't develop the underlying memory to the virus, the T cell memory to the virus, and we don't have an effective scaffolded health practices around us that allow us to be strong and buffered and balanced in dealing with this virus, then we will almost definitely have the reemergence of this virus in our lives. I've also speculated, and I think with some good sense, that this is much like HIV and herpes, that this virus, because it's a hybrid between blood/immune/nerve virus and a respiratory virus, it gets communicated through respiration, but it kind of lives in the body, that we need to find equilibrium with this virus. And if we really, really stress out our bodies, create bad diet, no exercise, not enough vitamin D, and so forth, that we could possibly have a reemergence of the symptoms of this virus in ourselves and reinfect other people. So it's going to be a call for some serious responsibility on our part and some serious opportunity to begin to do the right things by ourselves and others. So let me put myself into the corner and look at the conclusion we came at before is that we really want to emphasize T cell memory, and especially T cell CT8 cells, because they're non-inflammatory and they are the ones that go directly in to kill off pathogenic infected cells and pathogens. So if that is the case, then one of the things we have to look toward, and what we're going to examine here, is what kinds of things can we do to establish our bodies or to support our body's ability to produce especially T8, the T cells, the CD8 cells, and what allows for our body to buffer. We've already discussed how vitamin D does that, and now even conventional science accepts that, and even Trump himself took vitamin D as part of his regimen. Could have saved about half the lives, possibly, of people who died from that because their blood was thrown so far off, and D helps to regulate the inflammatory responses in the blood. We've seen that vitamin C does that. We've seen some clinical experience with zinc as being helpful. Now I'm going to get to one more thing, and that is niacinamide, which is a somewhat intermediate form of vitamin B3. B as in Bob, 3, because it helps with NAD production and it helps with the maintenance of the correct proportion between these T4 cells and these T8 cells. These T8 ones are the ones that help really retain the memory. A lot of times they stick around, they directly do this. The T4s are helper cells. And these T4 cells, as you see in my last video, these helper cells can release cytokines to signal a problem, okay? And kind of get a more full-scale response. But the problem is this: if we develop vaccines that target only the B response, or say the T4 response, we could actually trigger an overreaction by the body. And I've also speculated in my other video, and two important problems. One, a diversion and distraction of the body's energy toward fighting one particular thing, while over here, especially with a complex hybrid novel coronavirus over here, like COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 virus, starts doing its work over here. So you could test it, you can have a great reaction, you can say, oh my God, look at all the antibodies it has, but if the antibodies aren't targeting the correct thing, or they're over-targeting in such a way that's creating a dangerous inflammatory response for the body, now you're in trouble, okay? This is why it is very, very important for you not to get into that BS argument about anti-vax versus pro-vax, okay? Middle vax, smart vax is the only way to go. It's like working smart, not work long or work hard, you work smart. We want smart vaccines that go ahead and enhance the T8 cells, the memory, and the capacity of our body to face these coming on. And if you want to mix that with a cocktail of another vaccine that may do some degree of inciting B cells to get right there, we can experiment with that. But what is not being explored nearly enough, because it's expensive, okay, and because people haven't tested for a comprehensive approach to this, is we need something that begins to target T cells. And we need to know what's going to enhance our own body's T cell response to actually remember and go directly after these microbes in ways that enhance our cells, make us stronger and more knowledgeable as an immune organism. So let's look at this. This, again, just is one of the articles. It's a peer-reviewed one, again, in Nature Reviews Immunology. But what it talked about was the immunity of the dengue virus and a tale of original antigenic sin and tropical cytokine storms. I won't go on and on about this. It's a little bit scientific, but basically, I mean, this refers back to the fact that if your body is taught by a vaccine, and this is what happened in the Philippines when they tried to do a dengue vaccine there. They killed something on the order of 600 children and had to stop the trial. I think they vaccinated like 100,000 kids. Because what happened was that what this vaccine essentially did was teach these kids' immune system to act in a particular way. It provoked a certain kind of response that once this kid contacted the wild virus, later on, it actually was maladaptive. It made the immune response go the wrong direction and fatally. And oftentimes it's fatal either because there is it's such an intense reactive inflammatory response, so the body's own autoimmune almost response ended up dying, just like somebody who has asthma or someone that gets anaphylaxis. You know, they get a bee sting and all of a sudden their whole system seizes up. It's their own body killing them. It's not the bee sting, okay? And the same can be true with vaccines. Now, if we have a smarter approach to vaccines, which looks at vaccines not as combatants, but as cooperative tools and supplements to the body's own immune system, then we have the kind of immune therapy and vaccine development that I can agree with. Unfortunately, because everyone's in a militaristic mindset, we haven't reached that level of maturity yet. And there are deadly consequences, even with children. So let's look at vitamin B3 here, okay? And here's what it says here. Vitamin B3, a possible treatment for COVID-19. The logic seems to indicate it. There are some degree of clinical studies right now, but they really haven't reached that amount. We need to develop more clinical studies that begin to bring these things together. Vitamin B3 and its derivatives have a long history of use in medicine, have been recently drawn interest for their anti-aging properties and for the use in treatment of COVID-19. There's a recent published, this in March, stating that since vitamin B3 is a highly lung protective, it should be used as soon as coughing begins. There's considerable experimental evidence that this is indeed the case, but all therapeutic strategies for COVID-19, it will be some time until this is proven. For the time being, there's absolutely no harm in taking vitamin D complex that contains vitamin B3. Vitamin B3 is often referred to as nicotinamide on labels. Okay, now nicotinamide, there is nicotinic acid, which is sort of the preliminary form, and nicotinamide, which is the more intermediate form. And if you notice, it has nicotine in it. Part of the reason that it may be effective is because the nicotine, as we saw in a previous, had a protective effect of occupying the receptors that SARS-CoV-2 virus was attaching to. That nicotinoid receptor, nicotinamide, may have that effect. I'm not absolutely sure on that. We have to get the clinical studies and we have to do more research on it. But the other thing it can do is also balance immune response between these T4 cells and the T8 cells. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, okay? So, what is the role here, okay? It says, and here again, another peer-reviewed publication, this one in the Indian Journal of Medical Science, the role of polyurethanes this polymerase 1 inhibition by nicotinamide as a possible additive treatment to modulate, this is the important point, modulate host immune response and prevention of cytokine storm in COVID-19, okay? This vitamin B, as we will see, this vitamin B3 can modulate or take down those cytokine producing T cells, T4 cells, okay? And bring them into better balance with the T8 cells. If they get out of control and you have almost like an autoimmune response in the body, then you're creating all kinds of problems, inflamed organs and so forth and so on, and the system not knowing what to do because it's not being targeted. These inflammatory responses just going all over the body, and the immune and clotting mechanisms don't even know where to go. And then so they just end up going everywhere. And then that seizes the body up and creates sometimes fatal effects. So again, just looking at this, just looking at and this is a great article because it talks about the different things, what it does to curb cytokine storms, how it helps inflammatory lung injury, nicotinamide supplementation may combat COVID-19. And there are, again, so much of what the problems of COVID-19 have to do with the cytokine storm, the inflammatory response. Anything that helps to manage that and supplement and or support the immune response, especially T cells, is really going to be kind of a Swiss Army knife. And I think B3 can be said to be one of those, at least in a preliminary way, can be said to be possibly one of those Swiss Army knives to help our own systems come at it. Okay, let's get rid of no thanks on this. Okay. Now, why nicotinamide? Okay, now let's take why I have to say nicotinamide and niacinamide are the same. You can get them through Amazon, or you can get them through Vitacost, or you can get them through, I even like you to do it through your local store to support your local health food store if you're going to get it. Again, this is not medical advice. You take this, make your own judgment. I'm not here to be your doctor. I'm here to present research. Okay, there are three different forms of it. There's kind of a preliminary form, which is niacin, I think is nicotinic acid as well, an oxidative form of nicotine that the body can convert into NAD. Then nicotinamide or niacinamide is an amide, okay, that's nitrogen, form of niacinamide that is more similar to NAD and has fewer side effects. It doesn't have to be processed as much with your organs, so it's more similar to NAD. It can go into that form easier. It's more bioavailable, okay, in your body. Needs less processing, okay, and has fewer side effects. So this intermediate form is the one I'm focusing on. Nicotinamide riboside, synthetic form of nicotinamide that has different attributes. It's a much more processed form. From what I can tell, nicotinamide is the best form to use. And again, you can buy that, and it's not even that expensive. I got a bottle of, I don't know, 100 or more for $10 or so. So, nicotinamide is more similar to NAD than niacin, which may explain why this type of vitamin B3 has such a minimal side effect profile. Again, it doesn't have to go through a lot of this processing and so forth. Well, pellagra, which is the medical term for vitamin B3, which is rare, yes. So when treated with the original form of niacin, it can cause flushing, but in this particular disease, the flushing doesn't occur because it's a more bioavailable form, okay? And it also has some apparent benefits in treating acne. It's beyond the scope of this particular video, but let's keep going. So now we are in here. Again, this is Nature Notes. This is a naturopathic doctor talking about it. It says, when I first began studying nutritional therapies in the early 70s, vitamin C was my favorite nutrient. As I learned more about nutrients, magnesium replaced vitamin C at the top. And finally, he's really getting much more drawn to vitamin B3. Why? He talks about the two different forms. Okay, we talked about nicotinamide, okay? Here are some of the kinds of things that it has been clinically used to help with. Osteoarthritis, actinic non-melanoma skin cancer, even schizophrenia. You notice here so many of these vitamins that help to regulate blood also tend to regulate mood. Omega-3s and omega-6s, literally they found out that fish oil and omega-3 is better than St. John's wort for even regulating depression, emotional, glandular, right, as well as mood itself and brain function all become part of these. These vitamins that can help create buffering and balance in your body end up also having significant effects on mental aspects and emotional aspects of your body, like anxiety and schizophrenia, as well as we talked about acne and even glaucoma. In terms of adverse effects and dosage, there really isn't much unless you're taking mega doses over a very long time. I definitely recommend you stay within the recommended doses. But like a lot of vitamins, usually you have to take quite a bit, like an extreme amount. More is not better with vitamins, okay? Take the optimal amount. Now, if you have a vitamin D deficiency, for instance, you may be recommended by a health professional to take more to catch up, okay? But even then, usually you have to take way more than more to have any adverse effect. So here it goes, another paper says oral nicotinamide prevents common skin cancers in high-risk patients and reduces costs. Where are we going here? We're going toward lower cost supplements that enhance our body instead of just killing the bad cells, as it were. Finding ways to teach our body, educate our bodies, and supply the materials for us to build ourselves back. And build ourselves back better, if you go to the current political slogan, but this is completely different. And in doing so, if we do take any conventional therapy, like a chemotherapy or another, we will manage it much better, apparently, according to these more clinical studies. Now, I won't go through all of this. I'm going to simply just put this down and encourage you to go through to this one. Oliver Ennis at Wistia. Now, he put up a paper, I think it was on ResearchGate or something like that, but he's referring to peer-reviewed articles that go through all the ways nicotinamide helps an enormous array of maladies, including SARS patients and cytokine storms. And again, thank you, Oliver, for putting this out there. I encourage you guys to do this. Every 3 seconds, he's putting like 2 new papers and 2 new conclusions on there. So you're going to have to pause this frequently. But I found it to be very, very helpful. And he's referring to actual peer-reviewed publications and done the good job of bringing them all together. So I'll end with that. I don't want to go any further with this. But again, what are we looking at here? What we're looking at here, I'll put myself back in the middle here again. What are we looking at here? We're looking at the importance, to review and summarize, the importance of targeting any kind of vaccine we have as a tool in a comprehensive picture that has to do with really leading our lifestyles in a healthy way. Again, the sleep, the hydration, whole food, plant-based diet, vitamin supports and so forth, sleep, meditation, relaxation, exercise, and teaching our body. Now, if the vaccine therapies, immune therapies do that, and they target the right things, we're going to be in good shape, okay? If they target the wrong things or we over-rely upon them to, quote, take care of it all for us, like some magic pill, we're putting ourselves in a lot of danger, and we're missing a huge opportunity to create the education in our body, our minds, our spirits, our hearts, to go forward in a much stronger way. So again, I encourage all people out there, this is not medical advice. What this is life advice, with medical being a part of that. Don't accept anything, carte blanche. Investigate broadly. Find the things that work for you, okay? And don't just dismiss this or that. If you're in a different camp, see if there's a little something you can take from this camp that makes sense, even if you don't take the rest. And begin to integrate the best practices from each viewpoint. If it doesn't have any real best practices, okay, leave it. But again, take the time to research, take the time to make your own decisions, take the time to talk to, do your own research as well. This is one tool that I'm providing for you. And again, I feel privileged to do it, and I hope you do that. If you like and you get something out of this, please subscribe below and hit the bell if you want, next to the subscription, if you want constant updates on this. I'm going to try to do it more often. I've been kind of irregular. And there's also a donate button there too. It helps me fund the research on this and get the word out there. Okay, so again, until next time, this is Citizen Zeus signing off.